Hey there, I'm Chris Kroll, editor-in-chief of Solar Builder magazine. The residential solar market has changed, and likely for a good long while, which means residential solar business models need to change too. And over the next few episodes of Power Forward, we'll discuss some actionable strategies for restructuring your approach so that your solar installation business can be more resilient in the years ahead. To kick things off, we're zooming in on the concept of service and how you can turn that into a profit center. And while you're scoffing at that idea, I'll introduce our guests. Today we have Travis Walker, Director of Business Development at BayWa RE, and Corey Garrison, CEO of SouthFace Solar Electric. I want to start with just the term service. It's a broad one that can cover just the general post-installation interactions. And I wanted to start by maybe you guys breaking down the different services that fall under a solar company's service department.
This is a great question. And I think any company that's looking at going down this road really needs to evaluate what services they want to provide, not just the services that may look appealing. It really boils down to what type of services do we want to do? What does that look like? And then we build a pricing matrix based on the things that we want to do, and then be nimble enough to adjust to it, right?
Some of the services that we've seen installers really take advantage of is kind of fall into 6 or 7 categories. First being kind of monitoring and diagnosing, so making sure you're watching the system, the performance, flagging underperformance, which I think is pretty standard. Preventative maintenance, cleaning, tightening, things like that make the system just perform better and have a longer life cycle. Corrective services, so fixing what might be failing, fixing different parts. Then obviously warranty, RMA work, managing those claims from the manufacturer, shipping, logistics, installations, all of that good stuff. You can also talk about customer support, so answering questions, helping with billing, system upgrades. So are you adding an EV charger? Something we did to our house, which is adding a battery post install of solar panels, upgrading the monitoring hardware as new technology comes into play, right? And then lastly, is probably a topic that we're spending a lot of time talking about today, but repowering, which is a unique opportunity to revamp aging systems for better performance and reliability, really focusing on systems that maybe weren't done correctly, or frankly, just from an age perspective, technology has changed so much, it makes that system not effective anymore. And so without having to change out the whole system, I think it's a great opportunity to provide value to homeowners, which is our number one role in all of this. Number two, it's a great option to drive revenue. It's an opportunity because the customer needs this product, right? They bought this system and it's not working correctly, and now you're repowering their system. And a great way to get referrals. If you fix something that's broken, it's almost better than installing it the first time. So.
Yeah, that is the topic that we're going to focus on specifically today, is repowering. You guys touched on a lot of things I'm interested in, and maybe we'll get to in some future episodes of this series. But thinking about repowering specifically, how are you generally pursuing these repowering jobs? Is this going through your old customer database and following up? Is it advertising homeowners that have orphan systems that their original installer is gone, and you're kind of trying to get new customers in that are stranded out there? What is it? All of the above?
For us, it's all of the above. When we do repowering, we have to pull many different sources. Online marketing is still king in a lot of the stuff we do, so we try to targeted marketing that way, chasing customers. We actually are looking at trying, especially with service and repowering, going in and doing a little behavioral marketing, maybe in the Facebooks of the world, so to speak, so we can really narrow down the target that we're after. Because repowering, beauty of these type of jobs is that you're dealing with customers that have already bought in and drank Kool-Aid, so to speak. They have an investment sitting there, and it's either working, not working as efficiently, or not working at all, which is what we find a lot of times. And then you have the companies out there that kind of collate and have orphan system finance companies. They have a ton of orphan systems that they literally pay us to go out, inspect, and then put together a proposal on what it's going to take to make them work.
I think another smart way that we've seen from various installers is partnering with like real estate agents or inspectors as kind of a lead opportunity. A lot of times they may be seeing these opportunities, they're just not available to us, and they see the frustration that the end customer is having or the homeowner is having. Being able to refer someone good to those projects is really, really great. And then creating like a call campaign, right? Figuring out, okay, if it's X amount of years, call it 7 years or older, are we just doing a service call? Hey, how are things going with your system? I know if the folks who installed my solar system today called me and said, hey, how is everything going? I feel great about that.
For your current, maybe past customers, Corey, how do you go back through customers of your own to collate that list, or are you just waiting for something to maybe go wrong or something you're noticing and monitoring for repowering in particular, or like, it's been 5 or 7 years or warranties are past due, and that's when you're following back up? Do you have a specific strategy for that?
So we're still working through a lot of those, but going after our own customers in that regard, I would say that 5 to 7 year mark seems to be a good check-in point, especially if you're chasing for us, we look at it, we're trying to get a service agreement with them, usually on an annual basis, to where they feel more committed to us and we feel more committed to them. So deepening that relationship with the customer. Therefore, if they do have an issue, we'll be the first they call. It also allows us to get them to opt into like a drip, so to speak, campaign, where we can actually like a little bit of information out to them. Hey, have us come out and just take a look at, see what's going on. Would you like to see a system diagnostic of how your system's performing? And then we base that on like a PV watts analysis. This is what it should be doing. This is what it is doing. Let's dig a little deeper here. And as Travis alluded to, customers are extremely receptive to that, especially if we're talking about power that they may be missing or that they aren't getting.
To add to what we were talking about, I do think making sure that you pick the right brands to partner with is really important when you're talking about, okay, how do I collate a customer list? If I collate a customer list and I attack that list and we're making phone calls, and then the brand I install for them isn't reliable or isn't a steady brand or a brand that my team is familiar with, then you kind of actually did more damage than not calling them at all, right? So I do think that that is an important component in just making sure that we're partnering with the right brands as we do a lot of this work.
Corey, and we're thinking about this, like the repowering job itself, do you feel like part of it is just at the outset, for your own customer base, if you have opted them into and are just generally keeping touch with them and doing your kind of those other annual services over time that we've been talking about, a repowering opportunity maybe just naturally comes up? It's not like you haven't been in their life for 5 years.
Correct. Right? I think that's more of the tack that we've been going down. We haven't actively, especially our own customers, if we have agreements in place with them, we're trying to let that organically happen as much as possible, but just keeping them TOMA, we refer to top of mind awareness. Hey, we're still here, still partnered with you. We still want to help you any way we can. Monitoring has come so far, we can actually go and see what systems are having issues.
And I was wondering how the economics of repowering works out. How much might I be replacing in a system to repower it for customers? And what is your margin on that, if you would even know what that is? And I guess as a part of this question too, we've been just saying repowering a lot, maybe defining what repowering specifically is in your mind. Is it just solely the inverter and getting things back up because there's something faulty there, or is it replacing lower performing modules with higher power, more efficient modules?
I think it's a combination of the two. I would say just replacing the inverter is the most used option. Replacing modules, we do run into that, and we do that. It's kind of around that 280 watt module, it seems like. If you go much smaller, that, it doesn't make sense just to update the inverter because there's so many more benefits you would get, taking up less space. I mean, we just did the largest one we've probably done. It was like an 80 panel. The manufacturer was out of business. He was having so many issues. It's like, you're going to pay us X amount of dollars to come and find out which modules are good and bad because you don't have module level monitoring. And then by the time you add those hours up, you may have 30% of your panels bad. So it's easier just to come in and replace it with all fresh new modules and inverters, and you get an update on the tax credit federal. And it seemed to work out for that particular customer. But in those regards, it's a cost benefit analysis of how much are you going to pay me to figure out what's wrong versus how much are you going to pay if we just come in, take everything off, and just do like a remove, reinstall with new equipment.
We found that a few installers that work with us, they've kind of pivoted their whole business model to just doing repowering and warranty work and all of that stuff. So when you talk about margins, they felt like the margins in the business were higher than what they could do for just solar in general. Somewhere between 30 and 50% margins, right? I mean, pretty good margins because of the amount of work that has to be done. And so we've seen installers say, hey, we're making just doing, if you do one repower per week, you could be making $200 to $300, $400,000 a year, right? Depending on how big those systems are and how much repowering. And think of that at a 50% margin. You're talking about walking away with another $200K worth of profit into your bottom line. It is definitely worth it getting into this. And kind of what we were just talking about, Corey kind of touched on the tax credit and being able to use it, but that just reminded me of what's going on right now, real time, for the tax credit, which 25D, which is what the tax credit that's used on residential solar for the tax credit, the 30% tax credit, is in real jeopardy right now with the new House bill. Repowering, you can build a whole new revenue stream and not be worried about what's going on with 25D, right? So if you're looking at your business and going, oh man, we're mostly a cash loan business, we don't really do a ton of TPO, 25D could really hurt us if it goes away. This is something that you might want to get into sooner than later, to be able to supplement through that, because we know all of these things are phases. We know that tax credits, even if they go away now, they'll be back, then they'll be in jeopardy again. So you want to build a business that can survive without government subsidies, right? And you want to be able to be diversified in your business, just like in any business, so that when hard times come, you can pivot into another part of your business where you can spend a little bit more time driving that. And then when good times come, you can kind of pivot back into those good times. So I think this is a perfect topic to talk about. Thank you, Chris, for doing this right now, because I think repowering is, one, needed so badly by customers out there today. There are so many fly-by-night installers that installed systems. I'm sure you've seen them, Corey, that just, you're like, man, this work is not very good, right? So there's opportunities for us to go and do better by the homeowners, which is doing better by the industry in general, because we want solar to have the best reputation possible, and that comes with quality work. So good installers, get into this, get into repowering. There's a lot of customers that need your help and support.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into the next question I had about, so, okay, you are pursuing repowering jobs or, quote unquote, orphan systems. I'm just wondering how these conversations go, because it's a high likelihood that maybe this customer is disgruntled or maybe possibly grumpy about the solar industry or how their last relationship went. We know there's some there's some bad stories out there about how customers have been treated. Maybe they're less open to hearing your sales pitch. Corey, do you have any examples of what is this conversation like with a new customer who has solar and is maybe had a bad experience?
So that's interesting, and we do run into this a lot, especially in the orphan systems. And it just depends on what that customer went through to get to where they currently are. Some of them have made significant investments. It hasn't ever worked. It's been offline for 2 years. Some of them don't know, which shocks me. I try to reiterate into my people that reach out to these folks and work with them. You have to have a person in that seat that's making those initial contacts. You have to have somebody that can handle those negative interactions if they come. And the easiest way that I have found that to be the case is remember that you're there to help them and keep reminding the customer that I'm here to help you. I can't speak to what the other company does. You don't want to talk ill against another company, even if you may have those type of feelings. At least that's what we find. But we try to reiterate them. I'm trying to help. I'm here to help. And sometimes people just want to be heard. And so you just have to kind of be a sounding board and realize that they have a story and that they need to share that story to you. And sometimes that actually helps in a redesign or working through whatever problem they ran into.
The opportunity makes a lot of sense to me. And we've been talking about all of the, reasons that installation companies should be considering pursuing repowering jobs. Is there any, what would you consider maybe challenges or downsides to doing this?
The unknown that you walk into in these scenarios, right? Because you're like, okay, I don't want to touch this. And then they're blaming me for it not working or whatever the case may be, right? So that can always be tricky, especially when you look at like old wiring or code violations that weren't in place, parts compatibility, right? Like older parts with newer parts don't really work that way. And then lastly is setting those customer expectations. You go in telling them, hey, here's how much it generally costs. And you get up there, and you've probably seen this, Corey, you get up there and you're like, oh, wow, this is gonna cost like double, right? Like this is like totally messed up, right? Now you're going back to the customer. And sometimes as a customer, you can feel like, oh man, are you just saying that? Right? Are you just, are you just saying that to get more money from me or whatever the case may be, right? So we found installers, that's the hard part of this, is really going into those situations and being able to set the right expectations without feeling like they're taking advantage of customers. I think it's leading with empathy, though. I think if you're starting from a place of understanding what the customer's shoes are and going through, I think that you can walk yourself through a lot of those scenarios that might be a little tough.
It's about protection, right? You're trying to protect yourself as a business from some of those, and man, you will see it all. So one of the things that we've implemented is certain parts of our service we won't do unless you do other parts, i.e. like we won't do a performance analysis unless you're doing an inspection. And with visual inspection and an actual inspection for us is two different things. So you have to define those very clearly so that the technician knows what he can and cannot walk into, and that where that line is and when to bring that customer in. If you walk through a rat's nest of things, we're going to bring that customer in immediately before we start putting our hands in anything. And most of them, I'll be honest, when they see it, they're like, I totally get it. And then the ones that don't, we try to just make sure we document really well, because as Travis, you said, once you put your hands on it, you own it. But you can have all those conversations before you ever walk through the door.
We touched on this a little bit in terms of different ways to structure this as a line of business, possibly, and maybe how much revenue you could expect. And Travis, I guess, want to know if there's anything else to mention there from other customers you've heard of, like in terms of, should I be all in on this? Is this just kind of low-hanging fruit that I should just get excited about when the opportunity arises? What are the different ways to structure this?
Yeah, I mean, there's really three, I think, ways you can attack this, right? Which is reactive only. Hey, if customer calls me, then I'll go do it. The customer is going to be more engaged in that process, and so ideally more profitable and stickier customer, but unpredictable. You can't really build it's hard to build a business plan off of, if someone calls me, then I'll help them. Then there's always the proactive approach, which is, hey, my sales team, you're going to reach out to X amount of your customers over that are 7 years or older over this period of time. We're going to schedule appointments. We're going to go out. We're going to do those things. Could bear fruit, could not, but definitely a good way to build a business model around it. And then the last is building like maybe a service subscription model, which is at the very beginning of the sale process. Hey, I'm going to build this into your price. We're going to come back out to your home X amount of months, years later, and we'll do this inspection for you. And you're kind of front loading that opportunity in terms of revenue in the model. So I think that there are three different ways I've seen from various installers. I like the proactive approach. It's an easier way to plan it. I do like the subscription model. I just haven't seen numbers on how successful it's been, but I love being able to, because as a customer, I would love being able to add an extra $20 a month, knowing, okay, if I add an extra $20 a month to my loan payment or my TPO payment, then I'm going to be able to get Corey to come back out in 7 years or 5 years and check my system, right?
Right.
And I might have to pay, but I would have to pay a lot more, right? So Corey's going to buffer that payment. So it's still going to have to pay some market rate, pay for products or pay for whatever. And Corey's got to build that into his model. But if I know that he's going to come out and it's going to be cheaper than if I would have just had, hey, come out to my system later, man, that's a service I would definitely sign up for.
I too see there's majorly 3 paths when you're getting into service. One of them is and I feel like we've done all 3 in my own business, where you're kind of like just being reactive. Customers call, oh, we don't do that, or we'll take care of that for you, kind of thing, and you're kind of guessing at what the pricing looks like and what this, and I just didn't like the way that felt. And we did that for a couple of years until it was like, hey, this actually has some legs. We need to sit down and kind of work this out, and then put resources to it. Full-time service manager, full-time techs, things like that. And it seemed like the margins got a lot better. Clarity kind of came around it. We were dealing with problems before they arose. It wasn't just being reactive. This is what we're seeing customers need. This is what we're going to do with that. And then it allows me to put a pricing matrix together so that way I have a little bit more focal point. And then take that even further, we're rolling out a subscription-based modeling, probably post and pre. So I look at the pre being rolled into the contract up front, post as customers that don't have that already. We can go to and say, hey, for this monthly or this quarterly or this annually fee, this is the benefits we can bring to your table.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Thanks for that. Last question here I was wondering about is what I should be thinking about in terms of actual hardware that I'm replacing, because saying an inverter failed or maybe that company's now gone, no matter how much I like a certain brand, that could happen to them too, right? Do you consider the fact that I should be standardizing in what I'm installing? Should I be diversifying what I'm installing? Maybe this is also an opportunity to replace an inverter with a hybrid inverter or a storage opportunity down the road. I guess there's a lot to think about with hardware, but I guess what is your philosophy when it comes to what you're doing when you're replacing?
So for us, we talk to the customer and see what their goals are, and then try to align what we're going to do with their goals and expectations. That means if they're talking about batteries, we look at Arizona market's a lot different market than most places, meaning we had net metering, we no longer have net metering. Where is that system at in that format? Are they grandfathered in? Are they not? What rate are they on? I mean, you have to basically be able to look at all these analyses, but the basics of it all come down to what is the customers, are they just wanting the thing to work again? And so we try to take the quickest path to get them to working. And then we also mirror that with, this looks like it could potentially be better for you if you move towards a direction like this. If you're trying to up some, let's say a battery, something like that. Most customers will tell you what they want if you listen and can understand what they're saying.
That's kind of a good note to end on and kind of come full circle. The bottom line to all this is just really listen to your customers, go in with that empathetic mindset and just be a problem solver and actually be with them for the long haul, regardless of what experiences they had beforehand. We're going to all repower this industry together, no matter what happens next, right? So it's not just that one job. It's kind of everything we're building as a solar community, I think. So Corey and Travis, I want to thank you for taking the time to stop by Power Forward today and talk about this topic. It's very important today, I think. And I think the conversation we had is hopefully going to open some eyes and maybe lead some businesses down a new path to just help customers out there and just put a better foot forward for the industry overall.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.